here this evening with, hi everyone, this is Sinead, and I am here this evening with Kurt and Carolyn. Hi Kurt, Carolyn.
Hi. Hi everyone.
And tonight's hangout, we're going to be discussing sibling rivalry, but more specifically also opening up the dimension of what parents experience when their children are almost fighting each other, going to the point of bullying each other. And Kurt and Carolyn have gone through some experiences with their two little ones, and within that also managed to change some rivalries between the two of them. So, Carol, would you like to share with all of us some experiences that you've been through with your children and their fighting with each other?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say that in the beginning, when I first saw Crystal being aggressive, my eldest child being aggressive to her little sister, I was quite confused, because when Bianca arrived in our home, I thought she would really be the kind of sister that will be very happy and very glad to see her sister, but then it wasn't like that. She totally became someone different. She became quiet in the beginning, like she was trying to find where she fits in everything. So this is where it began when Bianca was born. So I remember she became very clingy towards me, and I didn't understand why all of a sudden she became clingy. So for myself, because I was at that time very focused on only just one child, I just didn't pay much attention on why she was really being clingy. I just assumed that she just wants to throw a tantrum, and she just wants to get attention from me, and I kind of pushed her away. I just wanted to be with one child. And this is when actually also it started, when I started to have this kind of relationship already, where I started perceiving my children a certain way, where I would look at Crystal, as this child who wants my attention, who started being aggressive to her sister. Therefore, I was like, I didn't like that about her. So the more she became aggressive towards her sister, and by aggressiveness I mean the times when maybe I would be seated by close to Bianca, and she would be on the bouncer. This is where I like to put her and rock her. Then Crystal would suddenly come and start pushing the bouncer really, really hard, like. So I remember that moment, how I saw her being aggressive. Within me, I also became aggressive immediately towards her. I was like, stop! What are you doing to your sister? Why are you doing that to her?
Okay, so Carol, just for a moment, just open up some. Primary.
We lost you. We lost you there for a while.
Mentions that and Bianca, getting along, and then when in reality came, it went completely different. So that you also had to kind of deal with inside yourself.
We did lose you there for a while, so I didn't get your question from the beginning.
Oh, sorry. In terms of just opening up some dimensions in relation to what you've just shared. So for example, having a look at how it is that you initially expected the two of them to get along, and within your expectations not being met, that's also kind of like a shock that you've got to deal with inside yourself. So it was that dimension, and then a second dimension being that you've only known inside yourself as a mother how to deal with one child, and now you had two, and so it was probably quite a process to give both children equal attention.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was a process, yes.
So how did you when you started noticing that Crystal was aggressive, and from a certain perspective you also felt that you handled her with also some emotions when you would say stop or don't do that, how did you walk that process inside yourself to essentially create that equal relationship between the two of them?
Yeah, if we can go back to the moment where I would say stop, that's when I realized that exactly what I was asking Crystal to do, to who I was asking Crystal to be towards her sister, is the same person I was not being towards her. I was asking her to be gentle, to be kind to her sister, but I was actually not living the same words myself, where I would also, my words would come out also to her in an aggressive way, because that's how I knew how to deal with the situation best. So I kind of so I took a step back and I asked myself, hey, I could see that this is definitely not the way, not how I would like to direct this point. So what I started doing slowly but surely is, first of all, change who I am when I am with my children, especially when they are together. I started becoming more and more aware of them both when they are seated together, because initially I could just sit rocking one child and just focusing only on one child, which was Bianca. But when Crystal was doing her own thing somewhere, she would maybe probably in one moment just rush over and really start to get aggressive towards her sister. And then because I wasn't prepared in that moment, I just snapped also towards her in an aggressive way. So I changed the point of, I started becoming aware of all of them, of both of them when they were next to me, when they were near me. So whenever Crystal would come in that aggressive way, I would slow down, first of all, within myself, and then I would talk to her. And then not only that, I would find an activity in that moment that I could do with Crystal, for example. It could be something as simple as come help me to like take the dishes out of the dishwasher and put them away. But now I also started looking at the relationship that I had towards Crystal and towards Bianca. And I realized that this relationship was starting to be uh, um, was starting to manifest in a way that I favored one child over the other. So I realized how I was communicating with Crystal was completely different from the way I was communicating to Bianca, for example.
Okay. Carol, just before we go, opening up the dimension of how you realized your communication was differing. I'd also just like to expand more on that process that you walked with, how you realized that with you as parent, that Crystal and Bianca were in a way both responding to your emotional state that was coming through in your words and in your behavior. So In other words, did you notice a significant change in both of them, or even Crystal primarily, your eldest, when you were speaking more in a gentle way, but not only speaking in a gentle way, when you also became more gentle, more calm, more peaceful?
Yeah.
Did you notice some significant changes there?
Yeah, like for example, I would kneel down next to Crystal so we could all be on the same level, and I actually show her from within myself I am stable, so I show her how to do it. So we rock her sister together, and she even enjoyed doing that myself, where previously I just wanted her not to touch her sister at all. So it's like I was also locking her out of being close to her sister. So I like brought them all together, and what I was doing to her sister, I showed and explained to her how we can do it together, the gentleman. So I showed her how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a very interesting practical way in terms of because if you kept locking her or keeping her away from Bianca, the youngest, and not teach her, what it means to be gentle, to be considerate, to how to touch and how to play. I mean, that would have then essentially kept Crystal in her emotional pattern or in her way of being and behaving. So I think it was a very interesting, creative way, to realize, look, I've got to be the living, leading example here for my children. And that's a fascinating example, a more practical example of how it is that as parents, we don't often realize that, if you're not calm or stable really inside yourself, and it doesn't come through in your voice and in your behavior and in what you do, children won't actually really realize this or live this.
Yeah, that's true. That's something I had to learn also for myself, because honestly, I never thought, I never considered even to do it that way. I never considered that I can consider my child as someone that can learn and take responsibility for something like, as obvious to me, like rocking a bouncer gently so that her sister can remain calm and, you know not in an aggressive way. I never considered that she can actually learn and enjoy that, but she did. She actually did.
That's fantastic. All right. Now, just to continue again from how you realized that your relationship with your two children was unequal.
Yeah.
What consequences did you notice there, and how did you change that?
Yeah. For example, I realized that I was creating this relationship towards Bianca, where I perceive her to be the gentle child, the kind one, the sweet one, the one that is not a troublemaker. And the opposite I heard about Crystal. I saw her as an aggressive child, as a child that does not listen, just wants to cause trouble, a child that is aggressive towards her sister. She's not kind. So all this, and so I tried to push Crystal away and keep Bianca closer to me. So the more I pushed her away, the more aggressive she became, and and she sometimes could cut me totally off guard. I could be maybe taking a glass of water, and her sister could be somewhere by herself, and she would run there quickly because she knows I'm not looking. She would run there quickly and do something. She maybe pull her and drop her, or just push her, for example. And then by the time, and I would approach her to like running quickly and say, hey, stop, don't do that to your sister. And she would run away. So it's like she was copying this behavior also from me, where that moment when I would be aggressive to her, she would be aggressive too, and I would react to her being aggressive, and I would create all these perceptions about her, and in at the end, I end up not liking her or not liking to spend time with her because of that point I created about herself. And so the entire relationship. And then I took Bianca and I put her in my arms and I said, oh, sorry, your sister did this to you. Oh, I am really sorry, Bianca. And when Crystal would see that, she would think that, oh, my mother probably prefers my sister over me. So this made just the relationship between my two children worse, where Crystal would even become more aggressive. And I knew that I had to change this relationship where I was creating more favoritism. I was favoring one child more over the other because I could see clearly the other child
Yeah.
was being left out and confused, and she didn't understand what was happening. And the only way
Yeah,
she knew
so
how to let out was aggression.
okay. So because another interesting dimension that I looked at here, which I've also actually seen in many other relationships as well, where let's say, for example, with your two children, it's also what we do with friends, with family, where we create this idea about them and we create a relationship to them based on how they're acting or behaving or what they're doing. Like, let's say, for example, you've got a friend or a family member who's not acting appropriately or who's emotional and who reacts, then we create ideas about them in our minds because we're also reacting to how they're reacting and not realizing within that if you create an idea of someone inside yourself, you're not giving yourself or them the opportunity to actually change because you're not seeing their potential. So, for example, with Crystal, yes, she might have been acting in aggression or in relation to Bianca, and because this pattern exists in all of in how we tend to deal with relationships, it will obviously also come through in your relationship with your kids. So it's interesting in terms of what I've noticed here is that you initially did react to Crystal's aggression and behavior, but yet then what came through is that you obviously saw a potential for Crystal in how she can become, in how the relationship with her and Bianca can be, and so you started nurturing that, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, like for example, some of the things like one time, usually when I went to change Bianca's diaper, I would take her upstairs and leave Crystal downstairs because I did not want to deal with all the fussing. So in a certain moment, I just decided to involve her in the whole activity. So we all walk all the way upstairs. I put her next to her sister, and she actually helped me to remove and change her sister's diaper. And this involvement really did a tremendous support to Crystal and myself as well, because then I started to actually see Crystal for who she really is. I started to involve her in my life, and because I had locked her out, so I started to involve her to really start to understand her and where all this conflict is coming from, because it was all those little simple things that I was taking for granted, like she wants to come upstairs with me and I don't want her to come upstairs with me, or I could put her sister in my arms and she would maybe want to come and brush her face or her hair or look at her or touch her. But I could tell her, no, no, don't touch her, because that picture of her being aggressive was all the time in my mind. And I was like, oh, no, 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 you're just going to be aggressive again. So I, I stopped all that, and I started whenever she would come, I just had to observe why she was coming and what we could all share from that moment, all the three of us. Instead of blocking her out all the time, I started to involve the three of them in activities that we can actually do together. Way back
Yeah.
when Bianca was young, changing diaper was one thing, or rocking her, or we just touch Bianca's hands and explore them and talk about them. And she really enjoyed it a lot. And
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is that that you made the relationship that you developed with Bianca, you shared that relationship with Crystal, as opposed to keeping her away from it. Like what I may be looking at is that that Crystal, the eldest, may have picked up on the fact that you had a relationship with Bianca, and that she wasn't a part of that in many ways. And when you started sharing that relationship with Crystal, that started helping her feeling left out, her feeling excluded, and taking it out on Bianca and on you.
Yeah, it was really
right. So also just for Kurt, within this experience with your two little ones, and with Carol as well, how have you faced this?
Yeah, when I look at Crystal, then I see really a part of when I was really young. I was the older brother. I wanted always to be the bigger one, the more foreseen, the one with more attention. And when it came that the younger brother then took up the attention, or got more, or in any way, I felt like less and like submissive, or minor, then I start also like attacking. And there are same patterns that, like Crystal is doing now to Bianca. All of a sudden, she can just come and bang and slap Bianca just out from the blue. And some part I did that too towards my little brother, when I felt within me that something is not, or it accumulated some emotion, and I can just in another moment when all is okay, bang, and it's slapping. So all these patterns, which I probably had in my childhood, I saw now in Crystal, or I don't know if she picked up on me or whatever, but these are also things where yeah, which it looks like it came out. And so for me, okay, Crystal is now the bad one, but I see me in her. So from that point, I always try to support her, to understand. But you have some
Okay.
perspectives about that.
Yeah. So for example, seeing what was playing out with Crystal and Bianca brought back childhood memories in relation to how you were with your siblings.
Yeah.
So I mean that does happen. I mean, oftentimes parents can see within their children, how their children are, much of how they themselves were, during childhood. So this is kind of where the process for parents can be quite supportive, in the sense that, for example, Kurt, with you, like with seeing that Crystal is being aggressive to Bianca, also did that to your siblings in the past, to now find a way that you can help Crystal and help Bianca to develop their relationship to something more supportive, where you as a parent can maybe look at what is it that made you feel when you were younger to be aggressive toward your siblings? You know, what went on inside of you, and then from your own introspection and reflection and learning, you can then look at how you can pass that understanding and knowledge to your children, you know, in terms of showing them or teaching them that, look, rivalry, this is not how you do it. This is how you take care of your sibling. So, for example, what Carol did. Carol, I really like that the application that you did in terms of showing Crystal how to be with Bianca as you are with Bianca, you know, and also being with Crystal in a way that she can see and learn that, hey, this is how you treat people. This is how you speak to people. This is how you're there for each other. So as parents, for both of you, Kurt and Carolyn, it is very important to really be the visible living examples for both your children in is to be with each other in communication, in interaction, in, for example, touch and taking care of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, regarding, let's say, emotions, or what do you think that, or what do you see then to change? Let's say patterns. Patterns are coming up from Crystal, where I can see could have been from me, or maybe she from her, and also, or how do you now see then to, I mean, change that? I mean, these things are more or less gone from my childhood. It looks like it appears still in Crystal, for example. And how do you see then, I mean, the changes or meaning
yeah, like see,
really the support
see, Kurt, the support that you can give to Crystal and Bianca is within how you live and how you behave and how you speak when you're in front of them, and also between you and Carol as well. For example, I mean, if we experience emotions, they experience feelings, but understand it themselves, they can't communicate it, so they tend to act it out, you know. So what would be important to change within your interactions with Crystal and Bianca is to not speak in emotions in front of them or with them. You know, not behave in emotions in front of them or with them, but speak in a stable, clear, direct way. In your actions, in what you do, with between the two of you and also with each child, you know, to make sure that you show them how to speak, how to live, how to behave in a supportive way with each other and with one another. They're going to follow your examples in many ways. So if you, for example, react to them and you become emotional and you speak to them in that emotion or do something in that emotion, I mean, that's not going to be supportive for them, because then what they're learning is, okay, if I'm emotional, I can speak it out and I can act it out and do what I want type thing, but that creates consequence for them and others. Make sense?
Yeah. Like in terms of the voice tonality, like for myself, I remember whenever Crystal would get aggressive and I go to tell her, don't do it, I remember always I raise my voice, the tonality of my voice, while saying, stop, don't do that. I changed it, and usually I raised it. And I realized with time, she actually also started saying the word stop with a higher tonality in her voice. She changed her voice when saying the word stop, for example. So I started being stabilizing my voice whenever I saw that there is a conflict about to happen. Usually I would jump in and with a raised tonality in my voice and just make the whole situation worse. But now what I do And what I started doing and what I do is when I see that the aggression or something is about to happen, I just walk. Previously, I used to even run, say, hey, stop, don't do that. Now I walk and I make sure that the tonality of my voice is stable. And I walk to Crystal and I tell her, no, you cannot be aggressive to your sister. Do not push your sister like that. You have to be gentle to her. Look, I show her, like, you have to be gentle, not pushing, but be gentle to her. And then at times she would scream or say something while crying. Then I would just sit with her and say, do you mind saying what you're saying, but in a stable way? And she would actually do it. Like, for example, when we are having dinner and she starts to scream, oh, I want this, I want that, that's what Bianca has. I want that one, I want that bottle. I would make sure that within myself I'm stable and make sure that the tonality of my voice is stable, and I would tell her, okay, can you please repeat what you just said, but in a stable way? So it's like she heard how I was speaking to her and she mimicked how I was speaking. So here I have that change. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very important. Yes, you've got to, as a parent, develop that patience to slow yourself down, to really sit down with your child and show them a different way, teach them a different way. And I mean, children learn exceptionally fast. They pick things up very fast, and especially if you do it in a real, genuine way within yourself. So what's fascinating as well is that I noticed, just opening up another dimension in what you shared, the example of where, if you saw the conflict starting to happen, that you tended to rush, and then changing it to you calming down first, you slowing down, which within that already is showing them, hey, become this calm that I am, become this stability that I am. So with you already being that calm and that stable, it also helps them to learn that calm and stable signature or experience, if you know that. So if you are that example of calm and stability, that's what they will also start experiencing and can start practicing for themselves.
Yeah, like, just to add on to that point, for example, whenever I went rushing towards Crystal, like I want to salvage the situation and not make it worse, and actually within myself I'm agitated already and rushing and I want to help out Bianca, Crystal would do it very quickly, then run very fast. Like, hey, don't catch me doing this. So she runs very quickly away from Bianca. Because usually when I did get to her, I took her and put her on timeout. But now, when I changed how I walk and how I approach the situation, when I slowed down and actually walked to her, to both of them, Crystal still remains there because she saw, I could see that she sees that I am not in that aggressive way also towards her. Then she runs away because she's afraid of being taken in a rough way to time out. So she would sit there and wait and see what it is that I was going to do. Like, she's not anymore rushing and agitated also like I was. So it's been quite interesting to watch this.
Yeah, so just to maybe round off some of the major points that we've discussed in this hangout so far is what seems to be quite evident in supporting the changes in sibling rivalry is having a look at your as parents relationship to each individual child, and then also at the two of them together. So if I'm looking at that you've shared thus far, Carol, is that what you'd say how you in the rivalry is when you started seeing both children as equals and making the eldest a part of the relationship with the youngest, and then also having much to do with how you approach both of them in terms of the calm and the stability.
Yeah, yeah, that's really an important point, because it's really the rivalry was always happening because of who I was towards each of my children and my approach towards the whole entire situation. And once I started changing that, that's when I saw also changes starting to come from my children. But before that, everything remained the same, and it sometimes even got worse. So it's really an important point that me as a parent was the one that really had to make major changes within myself to ensure that also the children would change also. So this was quite an interesting thing to
because okay, because I mean also here, I mean this is not something for parents to in any way take personal or you know react to in the sense that, I mean, most parents, if you really look at the experience of having a child, nothing can prepare you for it, you know, meaning you don't know who you're going to be, what you're actually going to be going through, and you learn, you know, through trial and error and through good moments as well. So I mean, Carol and Kurt, for you, both of you, the changes that you've made inside yourselves and how you've seen that has come through in the sibling rivalry with your two children, I mean, that's something quite extraordinary. And that from in this hangout, I think that all parents can take with them when your children are fighting, to, you know, have a look at some of the practical were discussed in this hangout, and to realize, you know, the extent to which, you know, we as parents in who we are and how we are actually have a major impact on how our children is and how they behave and act with other children, with their siblings and things like that.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Huh? Change first ourselves, and then the children will change too. So instead of wanting to change the children, which was the usual, or the way we have been grown up, let's say like that.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we always want to try and change the children, you know, like with sibling rivalry, you'd want to try and change the two kids, not realizing that as parents, just by first changing maybe your approach, your relationship, really looking at change them.
yeah.
All right, so Kurt, Carol, is there anything else that the two of you wanted to share for this hangout? Like Carol, any more advice for any parents?
Yeah, I would like to say that this journey itself, it hasn't only been only changing myself in those moment-to-moment living, but it's also been changes that I'm making in my life. Like Sunet just said, that nothing prepares you in being a parent. You don't really know what you will encounter and who you're going to be. But I took this like the unknown for myself. I took it, and from there I just educated myself, because I didn't want to just stay in the dark, because honestly, I also did not know much about caring for children. Like everyone else, the child is here, now what? So the child is this age, now what? So I went out there, I educated myself about so much about children, especially in terms of activities and what I can do with my children together. So I expanded my skills in what I can do with my children together, and this has really helped improve my relationship towards them in a big way. Now it has helped me to start creating a relationship based on equality, where I approach each child the same way I would approach the other child. So now it's no longer about the games of, this child is like this, or this perception or that perception. Now it's about really getting to understand my child, being with them, really being here with them, spending time with them, and just seeing what I can do to assist and support them. So this has also been like taking my entire childhood and now recreating it for my children, how I would have loved the adults around me to be like towards me. So I'm taking all this and I'm changing it, I'm recreating it and living it and showing to my children. So this is what I would like to share.
Yeah, that's amazing, Carol. Yeah, I mean, having children of your own, it really does open up that opportunity of creating for them the childhood, the relationships and the experiences that would be best for them, that would support them in the future, and within that give to them in many ways what you yourself might not have had. So that's awesome. All right, Kurt, Carol, thank you very much for joining us in this hangout and sharing opening up and sharing some of your experiences with your children and the rivalry. And I'm sure many parents will be able to relate, and within this also acquire much support and assistance. So Carol and Kurt, thank you very much for sharing and walking this process, and being an example for other parents as well, where we're all in this process of learning together, and creating the best life possible for the children.
Thank you for the perspective.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone who's listening and joining us here for this hangout. And I'm sure in the future, Kurt and Carol, we'd like to join you for more hangouts and share some experiences.
That will be great.
All right. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Kurt, Carol.